Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes, agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stephen Bradley, and today's guest is Robin Beattie, founder and president of Squeaky Wheel Restaurant Marketing and Squeaky Wheel Branding and Marketing. How are you doing today, Robin?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on and sharing your time. Let's dive straight in. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the start of your journey and what made you start your own business, and give us an overview of what your role looks like today inside both Squeaky Wheel companies.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. So I have to go back a ways. I wish I didn't have to go back so far. It wouldn't mean that I am as old as I am. I got an MBA from the McCone School of Business and graduated in 2002. While I was there, I did my internship in between my first year and second year with Coca-Cola North America, and ended up going to work for them after graduating, and worked for them on and off for years and years and years. Learned incredible skills and got incredible experience there. Worked on some incredible brands like Minute Maid, Simply Orange, Odwalla. And then during a brief period in between, and I say brief, like 3 years, I actually moved to Cincinnati and worked for Cal Brands, which is like the Japanese P&G. So big beauty brands. So while there, I worked on Jergens lotion and Natural Glow, and again, incredible learning experience opportunities. Came back to Coca-Cola and worked with them again, both as advertising and also innovation. And in 2015, I had my third child and just decided I needed to get out of corporate America, basically. I loved it. I loved my experience. I love the people I worked with, but it's pretty demanding, lots of hours. And I just really wanted to kind of figure out what that next step was for me, especially with 3 kids. And that was my third child that I had. So once I got out, I had someone approach me pretty quickly and just say, hey, I heard you're not with Coke anymore. Would you be interested in working with this restaurant that I'm working with? They need some marketing help. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the agency, even before I knew it was going to be an agency. So I did some work for them and they were, pretty happy with it. They said, well, we have other restaurants. Can you work with them? And so I started working with them. And then it just sort of cascaded into other opportunities and other people reaching out to me to work with them. And about a year after sort of starting that work, I decided I think I probably better make a company. So I opened Squeaky Wheel Branding and Marketing at first, just sort of a general agency, a boutique here in Houston, and worked a lot with restaurants, worked a lot with a multitude of various businesses, small and medium. And my background is very heavy in branding, and I have a lot of experience in advertising and brand management and various things. It's kind of all encompassing. But yeah, starting it on your own, it's a very different gig. Yeah, you wear many hats, and a lot of those hats are really not very sexy. It's like, what has to be done, you're doing it. It's all you. Yeah. So over the years, I've just continued to evolve. And I think it was about 2 years ago, I kind of got big enough where it was like I really needed to shit or get off the pot is what it boiled down to. So it was like, do I lean in and really go for building an agency, scaling the agency, or, do I back off and keep it more manageable where I could tackle it on my own? And I decided to lean in. So that's when I started doing more focus on my business versus just, I hadn't put any time or effort really into it, and scaled, started looking at coaching and doing coaching and, just kind of embracing anything and everything I could get my hands on. And I decided to niche down at that point. So I opened the second agency that was focused on restaurants. I had worked a lot with restaurants. There were many industries that were close seconds, I was like, oh, do I do this or that or whatever? And I still, to this day, like I have kept a legacy agency and we continue to grow. But I really wanted to focus on restaurants in its own agency just because, like, one, I love working with restaurateurs. Like, they it's like great people working hard, tough margins, tough industry, highly competitive, but like so much you can do to really move the needle. I really felt like the work there had such a heavy impact in helping restaurants sort of get past some of the pain points they have. So, yeah, that's where been kind of the focus for the last couple of years has been really kind of ramping up on that, putting together really sort of clear plans and actually scaling where I'm going out and seeking and looking to build the business and find restaurants to work with. So it's been an interesting journey, probably boring to most of the people who hear it, but it's been it's like everybody's journey. I've listened to other podcasts of yours, and like everyone has their sort of path and figuring out where they're headed. And a lot of times we're all going blindly and just figuring out as we go. And that's kind of how I feel like we've landed here. It's like some strategy, but some luck and some just sort of, pushing through. And yeah, here we are.
No, definitely. It's having faith as well. It's having
Yeah.
faith that you don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I feel like entrepreneurs have such a deep sense of faith, whether that's in themselves or some in God or whatever, where they just feel like
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this work one way or another, even though I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it. And
Yes.
and as well, like so many businesses, like you said at the start, where you were working in your business, not on your business. And that's the point that changes when you start working on your business to actually
Yes.
scale it up. It changes the whole playing field. I feel like, it opens your eyes to so much of what you can be doing, not just on, because a lot of agencies, especially at the like more infant stage, they focus on their clients' businesses. They're like, oh, I want to make everything it's all that, but neglect then your own business, which then
Yes.
obviously it then that's what enables you to scale, is when you take a step back and just be like, actually, I'm going to not so much focus on your business. I'm just going to focus on my business also. And I think that just changes the whole landscape of it.
It does. It's a very different mindset and it's a shift. I think, I think at first when I didn't focus on my business and I was so like just organic growth and I just all word of mouth and that is
Uh,
wonderful. That's the best way to grow, right? People come uh, preconditioned that you're great because somebody's told them how great you are, right? When you start working on your business, it's, one, it's a whole different mindset. But two, I also do think it benefits your clients because when you step back and you really start looking at what am I good at? What am I not so good at? Where could I improve? How could I improve my processes? How do I get the best people on my team to really deliver well? Those things also then end up helping your clients. So, not doing those things, I think, is a detriment as well. I just don't think you realize it until you actually start that process of really looking at yourself hard and as a business, like you tell everyone else what they should be doing. And then all of a sudden you
mhm.
need to eat, you need to eat your own lunch,
Yeah.
you know?
No, definitely. And like you said, it benefits them because also you get a different perspective on, actually, I should maybe telling them to do I've learned this, doing it this way. And then you can also give that advice to your clients as well.
For sure.
And, this isn't exactly what you're the best at. So maybe you should outsource that or hire somebody to do that. And then you can more focus on this, but you never really get that whole perspective unless you're doing it yourself, I don't think.
Yes. Yes, I do. I think it does give you a much broader perspective for sure.
And definitely working at Coca-Cola is definitely not boring, by the way. It's one of the biggest brands in the world. Like, do you know what
Yes.
I mean? That's actually super impressive. And also, I bet you, like, going from working for Coca-Cola and then eventually going and doing your own business, I bet you took so many like lessons from your time at Coca-Cola on how certain things and like, do you know what I mean? There's so many lessons that you can take from that, especially like you say, you're in branding as well. And you realize then Coca-Cola is literally one of the biggest brands in the world and how important that is even to your business.
I think branding is quite often the silent killer for a lot of businesses. When they don't ensure they have strong branding, they don't have a point of difference, they don't really understand who they're talking to and what they bring to the table and how they speak and what they look like and do it consistently, so you have that linear thread that ties everything together. I think it's the downfall of many businesses when they don't do that. And yet it's so often overlooked.
Mm.
And so often it's the thing that people kind of will be like, well, I don't have the budget to do that. I want to do more of the immediate things. And those immediate things are really important too, right? But if you don't have a clear brand, you just become one of many in a sea of many.
Hmm.
Whereas if you have a distinct brand that has a point of difference that, does something and says something to your target that is truly compelling and it speaks to them in a true way that they care about, man, it makes life a lot easier on all the other fronts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and also like even though it said like it's people focus more on the immediate, but building a brand has such an effect. It might take longer, but it allows you to command more for your product or service
Oh,
because of the brand you've built. Do you know what I mean? So it makes such a massive difference in the long run, which I'm sure all business owners are really in it for the long run, not the short run.
absolutely. Absolutely. And, especially with digital marketing where you do have so many tactics where you can connect the dots to a ROI, right? I did this, thus it paid me back that. That is where branding has a hard time, right? You can't
Mm,
always just make those direct connections, but the long-term impact, massive. So, we do marketing in everything we do. So even when we don't go in and remarket or rebrand somebody or do whatever we're doing, we always have branding as part of our marketing packages because without a clear message and without, some distinctive point of difference, you're just competing on whatever the lowest common denominator is. So is it price? Is it whatever that, general benefit is that everybody's touting, right? Whereas with a brand and with some whatever that point of difference that you have, it can separate you and it makes all those other things work harder, work smarter, work better. And so, yeah, it's something we always look at right away when we take on a client is, what is your brand? And do you have a brand guide? Do you have a style guide? What's your point of difference? We ask those questions. And if they don't have them, and even if they don't care about them, but they're hiring us for something else, we'll actually do an internal sort of audit and at least identify what we see their point of difference is, what we see their
mm.
branding is, and leverage that to try and ensure that they have that sort of strong brandings from the get-go, at least in the work that we're doing.
Especially with the restaurants, having because when you have a good brand that separates you from the rest, it's like the psychological thing that happens in your brain that you're already picking to go to that restaurant or to buy that product, whatever it may be. But it's the psychological effect it has on the consumer where they're just like, oh, that's safe, I'm going to go there. As
Yeah.
opposed to if it's not like that, then it's like then all of a sudden chaos is in the mind. They don't know where they're going to choose, and it's not your brand isn't coming to the forefront of their mind. Like when you think of running, well, when I think of running trainers, I think of Nike. Do you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. I don't think about many other brands because their branding is so engraved like in my psyche type of thing. And even though that's like, a large, massive company, of course, but even like if you're going into the mall, for example, and there's a restaurant in there, if the branding is really on point, you almost pick it before you even realize that you've already picked it if the branding is done well.
Well, I mean, it speaks to you, right? I mean,
Mm,
there's a subconscious element to it. I mean, it just speaks to you. You know what you're getting. If it's very clearly done, there's attractive to you, especially if you're, obviously if you're the target and it does a good job of telling you who it's for, what they stand for, what they bring to the table, their point of difference. And it makes it just so much easier for the target customer, whoever that audience is, to be able to make that decision. And then it's a quick decision. You're right. It's like, oh yeah, that's for me. That's
mhm.
for me. It already tells me it's for me just by looking at it, the way it speaks to me, the way it looks, all those cues that are all in the branding magic, they speak to that person. And, it does some pretty spectacular things. It can really work really hard for, businesses.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have to agree. So, Robin, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing inside the market?
Well, I mean, I think I'm probably no different than everyone else. I mean, AI is leading the pack. It's the thing, right? It's everyone's trying to figure out where it plays in their industry and how to use it effectively and how not to use it. I think that's almost as important. So that's probably the biggest. I mean, we're always looking at the economy and looking at the things happening. There's the different cohorts and what they care about. I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of trends, but I just feel like the loudest noise in the market right now is AI.
To agree. And are you leveraging AI in your company?
Yeah, yeah, we are. I mean, I am constantly trying to figure out, where it makes sense and where it doesn't. I think there's, some caution that needs to be taken with it. I've seen a lot of people jump in where they overuse it, and maybe it makes, when you go back to things like we were just talking about with branding, like it doesn't do a great job necessarily at
Mhm.
that. So I think you need to be cautious, but at the same time, where I think it works great is analyzing, trying to figure out as many ways as possible to use it to help analyze how are we doing, how are we performing, how are ads performing, like wherever we can leverage that kind of data, I want to leverage it. Working for big companies like the big CPGs I've worked with, they had huge departments that all they did was, research. It was such a important piece of the puzzle and understanding like what worked and what didn't. When I first came out on my own and started my entrepreneurial journey, that was one of the things that I had the hardest time with was the lack of information, right? The reams of information on the customer and what they were doing and what they cared about, and then seeing like the performance metrics, and it was limited, and that was a hard thing to adapt to and to sort of figure out, where do I go to find the answers? Where do I get a clear picture of what is or is not working? And I've had to do that. But I think AI, that's one area that I've really enjoyed, is that I see its capabilities in helping me figure those things out, or doing some of that market analysis that previously I didn't have the team or the bandwidth to do. I can literally have an agent created that can spit out that analysis now, that can help me, the competitive market, and, who's like, for restaurants, like you're talking a hyper local area that every restaurant location needs to be focused on. And so really understanding who's surrounding them, what are their demographics, psychographics, like what do they do, like, what do they care about, like what are their neighborhoods, what are the, I mean, just reams of information that do help a restaurant figure out, like, who should they be targeting, what channel should they be using to reach those people the best in their local market. Broad media doesn't work that great, right? And just posting on social organically doesn't work that great either. Not that that shouldn't
Mhm.
be piece of the puzzle, but it can't be all of it. And so,
Mhm.
help them understand like where they can better reach those people and more efficiently, like that's where I've seen AI be pretty powerful. We're also using it like, there's a component of expediting and helping efficiencies. So I
Mhm.
know we use, or we've been creating like gems in Gemini, where those things can be trained so that they can help us do things way more efficiently. And so what we'll do is we'll use them sort of as the stepping starting point, and then the team steps in and looks at all of the things and then optimizes it,
Mhm.
humanizes it, does all the things that we would already be doing, but we're starting from point, you know, X
Yep.
instead of A. And,
Mhm.
so we have a lot more steps, less steps after that to get it to a really optimized place. And then of course, like I said, the analyzing, then you have the same conversation on the analyzing, being able to take regular sort of information and then even do a deeper dive into it to see, like, is there any nuggets there?
Definitely have to agree. It's fantastic. Data analysis and even like market analysis. The way you described it then is like creating the avatars of who you're speaking to, and then being able to
Absolutely.
craft the ad or the marketing. So if you're speaking directly to that person, I feel like it's so very powerful. Do you know what I mean? And it'd be a lot harder to do that without AI, as opposed to, thinking of even just naming the avatar can sometimes be there. Like, I wouldn't even know, but where it creates it, it tells you the
Yeah.
demographic. It tells you what they care about, what they do for a job even. Do you know what I mean? All this type of thing enables like marketers, I feel like, to be able to direct marketing and advertising to speak directly to that person makes a huge amount of difference. Like you said, when you work for the big companies like Coca-Cola, they had whole departments to do data analysis and to pull out the nuggets from that. And now it's enabled small to medium sized businesses to have that type of department, even though they with so many less and so many less overheads, just being able to use AI to be able to pull out exactly what they would spend hours researching and looking for makes like a huge amount of difference.
Yeah, it does. And, you still have to be cautious. I mean, data can be good and bad, right? You need to know what you're looking for. You need to make sure you're using it as a piece of the puzzle, not the
Mm,
entire like answer. I think
mhm,
that's an important sort of distinction. Like no one knows a business like the business owner. I mean, they just don't. Like people
mm,
are highly invested in their business. And so, AI can provide data that maybe they're not thinking of, but then there's the piece of the input of the business owner and the input of our
mm,
experience or what we know about marketing, and all of it builds on top of each other to produce better results. And so that has been
mhm,
my goal with AI is how do I leverage it to be more efficient, to provide better service and to provide more value? What's that value proposition that allows me to do that I otherwise maybe couldn't, or I would have had to spend way more hours or charge a lot more. I can now provide more value at
mm.
the rate that I can charge, and I think my clients benefit from that.
Someone I had just on the podcast before said it was like a lot of people think AI is done for you, when really it's done with you. You use it to like give
Yes.
yourself a bit like what you said then, a leg up or a head start, and working with the AI as opposed to letting the AI do it all for you. It's just like another person in your business, another tool, another aspect of your business that allows you to do your job and run your business at a higher level.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. I mean, it's so
Mhm,
much about the prompting. It's so much about asking the right questions, providing the right information, putting the right inputs, and then taking the information and using what makes sense from it, right? It's
mhm.
not all of it's gold nugget. It's a tool. It's a tool, but it's a
Yeah.
tool I definitely have been trying to figure out how to fully leverage.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, I think embedding it in manual processes that, like speed to lead, for example, things like that, things like when a lead comes through, how quickly does someone or does the AI, does or you reply to that lead in these little key processes that are very manual, like data in, data out type of things. I feel like they're the parts that leverage and make the most sense because it doesn't solely rely on the technical differences of who says it, but having that just eliminate that time frame or and make that process go through similar to like sales. They go through, I think I've been told it's between 5 and 7 touch points to make a sale. So if you can automate the first 4 or 5, by the time you speak to them they're already warmed, they're already being felt heard, they already feel like they've been speaking to you the whole time, and it just cuts that sales cycle down for the salesperson, the owner, whoever they'll be speaking to, by a lot, and it takes a lot of weight off the plate of the salesperson or CEO, the owner, whoever they're speaking to, and allows you, by the time you jump on, you're already further down the line. You're 70% of the sale is actually done, and you then can focus on closing the client. Things like that, I think, are really going to be going
For
to
sure.
be like really good and really like key points to how we go through to future how we run businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's finding where it makes sense and where it could actually do the job well. I mean, that's where the real to me the challenge is. I mean, I've seen it sometimes used where there's automations put into place and they're automations that don't necessarily work real well. I think it's
Mm,
being able to identify where they make sense, where they really do work and provide value, and then where they don't. And if they don't
mm,
yet, and they may get to a point where they will eventually, but there's some things that they don't do great yet. And
mhm,
I think understanding that. I think for businesses and agencies and folks like myself, like one of the hardest things about AI is figuring it out.
mm,
There's so much trial and error. There's so much new information. It's overwhelming sometimes, right? It's just like,
mm,
oh my gosh, like 5 new tools came out in the last 2 weeks. Like, and how many tools can you have, right? So it's like it's a moving target, and like I said, it's
mm.
it's an area that I know I'm spending a lot of time and effort on, but yeah, if you find somebody who has the right answer and has figured this out, let me know because I think it's still got a ways to go to be easy.
Yeah, and even not new tools, but tools that have been around, they have new capabilities all the time. So
Yeah,
definitely staying ahead of what it can do and what it can produce at a very good standard, is key, I would say.
for sure. Yeah.
So, Robin, what is working well, and where do you still feel slight friction inside both Squeaky Wheel companies?
Well, what is working well? We have, I mean, I think we've really gotten our advertising, a lot of our advertising components performing very strongly and they work really well. And I think we've refined those so that they pretty consistently provide results for our clients that are, good, very good to help
Mhm.
them achieve some of their goals, right? So those things I have great confidence in. I feel like, we continue to refine them, but they're in a really good spot. Sales is always, it's a newer area for me. Like I said, like up till a couple years ago, I didn't even I
Mhm.
would have told you I didn't even do sales. Even now, like it's the area that I probably am less likely to put my attention and I probably need to be spending more. But as I get into it, yeah, it's a learning curve and figuring out what you want to use and what works for your business and what doesn't is important there too, right? So like I have been executing like I have a podcast, just like you have a podcast. I do webinars and I do a lot of content focus. I like to provide value to potential clients and then they can see what we offer and then hopefully, it's pulling them
Mhm.
in. Not very good at the pushing out and, seeking out cold calling, cold email, those kind of things. And it's probably because I don't love getting it coming towards my
Mhm.
end. So it's
Yeah.
not something I particularly love to do. I'm always fascinated by people who are really good at that, really good at the sales, closing and going out and really drumming up the business. So that's probably the biggest friction area we have at this point.
So would you say the what you find more like friction is in the actual getting a client on the call to, to the outreach part of it, the call, whichever way you want to do it, cold email, whichever, or is it the actual once you're on the call, you're comfortable, you can take the call, no problem, or would you say
Yeah,
it's more before that?
Yeah, once they're in, I mean, it's the actual discussion, closing, those kind of things is not it. It's
Mm,
it's the actively going out and getting.
mm,
I'm much more comfortable with like a content sort of focused approach than I am actually going out and hitting the ground and making the calls and doing the cold email and
mm,
all of those things. Those aren't areas that I've had to do and I'm very uncomfortable with it. So, and it's not an area that I have a team member dedicated to. So it falls to me.
mm,
And so it's like, it's like anything, right? If you don't like to do it and it's uncomfortable, you try to not do it. And so it's just
mm.
bad. Yeah, that is definitely the friction area.
It's definitely something that, especially when if you don't put all your effort into it, which obviously you wouldn't be. You're running a whole different marketing business. I understand that, but it's a lot harder to like get your head around all that part of it as well, and to like it's
Yeah.
like a muscle. I feel like the more you do it, the stronger it gets, and it can feel very foreign. I feel like as well as we do cold email and things like that. And at the start, when I first started doing it, I was very like this. Do you know what I mean? But then the more I got into it, the more I was sort of obsessed with learning parts of it, the psychology part of it, and all the inner workings and how AI is leveraged in it and things like that. But if I didn't have a system and I didn't have all this part of it, it would be like speaking French. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was at the start.
Yeah, and I do think it's having the discipline to make yourself do it and get past
Mm,
that
mhm.
discomfort and pain. So yeah, I'm still working through that, but I'm getting better. I'm slowly but surely forcing myself to try.
So staying on that point, how did you normally like acquire clients? What's your acquisition process at the moment, apart from doing that?
Well, I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate. A lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals. I've always had, pretty good steady influx of that. And, it works. It's just not consistent, right? You might have it
Mm,
even flows, right? It's like, oh, I,
mm,
got a bunch of referrals and then it will be dry, dry, dry. There's a lack of predictability and planning that comes with that.
yeah.
That's not good. And which is why I'm trying to kind of get out of that. But that has been um, definitely the way my agency has grown to date. More now, like in the last 6 to 8 months, I've really started trying to do more content. Again, I'm trying to, follow the direction I've been giving clients for forever.
Mm,
In doing more content, starting a podcast was a big move for that. Where I talk to people who restaurants really should be hearing from experts in different areas, talking about different things. Also, talk to successful restaurateurs about what do they do, what works for them,
Mhm.
why, and those are valuable insights for restaurants. That positions me as an authority figure, right?
Mm.
In webinars, doing webinars, stuff like that. So the content piece, I enjoy. I really like to help restaurants and all my clients actually. I really enjoy like if I know it and I can help you, I will.
Mhm.
And I enjoy that. So I think those are the most attractive things to me, and those are the things that seem to work best for me. But yeah, the word of mouth has been referrals have been my big push or my big influx to date.
Definitely. And the thing is with word of mouth and referrals is they're already so warm by the time you get them as well. Because
Oh
they're, like you
yeah,
said before, they're
yeah,
already been told how great you are. So
yeah.
it's a very simplistic process to moving them from there to onboarding them. And also, running a podcast, I think is a great move. Do you know what I mean? Because it, like I say, positions you as an authority. And especially if you're speaking to your ICP,
Yeah.
because even if it's not going to be directly for them, people listen. People want to listen to people that they can relate to, that they see themselves in. So well done for obviously starting a podcast and doing it that way, because I think a lot of people are a bit standoffish with it because they're thinking, well, I'm not going to be the next Joe Rogan, but I feel like it definitely it's definitely not for that type of purpose. It's for authority building and for people who are in your ICP to actually relate to and resonate with.
Yeah, and it isn't an easy thing to start. Like you feel, I mean, nobody likes the way they look on camera. No one likes to hear their own voice. Like you're like, oh my God, I sound like an idiot, but whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, you get over yourself, right? You just have
Mhm.
to get over yourself and get past it. And in the end, the thing I think I like about the content approach, you're helping people at the same time. And especially in that particular industry, the niche industry that I am focused on, like, I like I said, I have my general agency and it works with all businesses, but the restaurant industry is where I have the podcast focused on.
Mhm.
That industry, there's a lot of restaurateurs that do not have the revenue to afford a full-time agency helping them do the stuff that they need to do to succeed. And so I do want to help those people too. And, obviously I can't provide services as much to them because I also run a business, but I can certainly give them valuable information and tips and help them try to grow. And hopefully maybe someday they'll get big enough where I can get to work with them. But even if they
Mhm.
don't, I want to be able to help those I can, right? So I get a lot out of it from that too.
It's building your brand as well, like what we spoke about earlier. Like, say, if they do get to a point of needing an agency, then if they've been watching your podcast, you're psychologically the first person that they're going to go to as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of people. We all watch YouTube. It's amazing, platform. And we all see these people who are super smart that are always like, a few steps in front of us where we are like,
Mhm.
wow, look at what they're doing. They leave a lasting impression. They certainly
Mhm.
have a personal brand. And yeah, for sure. It's impactful.
Definitely, definitely, I have to agree. So, Robin, my last two questions are: where would you want to be in terms of business in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. I'm definitely in a desire of growth right now. So I have been investing time and effort into sales and into outreach and just, I've been I niched down. I've been sort of putting my operations in the place so they're scalable and they're in good place. So now I really am very focused on sales. So I would love to double my business in the next year or so.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm doing it well, and that's always the hard part of growth. And I tend to be a perfectionist. So I want things performing well. I want everyone's stuff to be working well. I want all clients to be thrilled, is smart growth and making sure
Mhm.
that that is done in a way where you're able to scale in a responsible way where you're getting those great results for everybody you bring in. But like I said, that's kind of been my focus. So I think we're in a position now to do that. And so that's really what I'm hoping for.
Definitely smart. I think scaling should really mean scaling client acquisition to get more clients in, but also being able to provide that same experience for your clients at the same time to go simultaneously up. I feel like is where it's at when you say responsibly scaling. I don't think if you're not doing both them things, then you're not really scaling the business. You're just scaling the one side of the business, and you're going to end up with a bump in the road, shall we say, if you don't focus on both them things simultaneously.
Yeah, for sure. And we've all heard stories of agencies that just go gangbusters, and then their retention is terrible, right? Because they
Mm,
get a bunch of influx and then it changes.
mm,
I think one of the hardest things when you're an agency and you do start to grow, or even you're trying to grow, is putting a team in place and processes in place to ensure that things are executed at a level that you're not touching as the owner. The person who started it, no one's going to do it necessarily like you're going to do it. So you have to be able to understand, like, that's just the way it is. I mean, that makes us all sound like we're, you know, ego maniacs, but it's not that. It's just,
mm,
when it's yours, there's an attention to detail, and there's an ownership there that someone who's hired may not have, right?
mm,
And it's hard to let go of that and make sure, to feel comfort that things will get
mm,
done to the level that you want them to get done at. That I know for me was very difficult. And I've spent a lot of times trying to put processes in place that can try and ensure that that does happen, and that I don't, a year from now, look back and see my retention rate has skyrocketed. And, I got a bunch of new clients, but then I lost a bunch of them too. Like, who wants that? That sucks. And it affects,
mm,
talk about your personal brand. Like, there's nothing like, poor results to hurt you,
mm,
that doesn't. And then you also have people who have spent their hard earned money to not get the kind of results they want. So that's just not something I want to do, and I don't think anyone
mm,
does, but that's something I've
mm.
been very purposeful in trying to put myself in a position where when I do grow, I can grow responsibly. Yeah.
Owners naturally are going to have an attachment to their own business because it's their baby. It's what they've been doing, and it's to the pro standards they
Is
have.
your
So I think
baby.
that's yeah, exactly. It's only natural to have that feelings. I feel like. But my last question, Robin, is if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would it be and why?
I don't know if it would be like necessarily the fixing of it. If I could wave a magic wand, though, to do something that I feel like is a challenge in my business, is finding really good team members
Mm,
easier. Being able to have like a better, more reliable source to bring in really high talent, committed team members. That's a hard thing. Hiring's hard, right?
mm,
there's just so many variables in that. And it's hard to find sometimes the right person. And so it's just, the right skill set that you're looking for that's a fit with the team and the culture.
mm.
Those things aren't always an easy fit. And so if I could have a magic wand, yeah, finding the right people easier, that would probably be it.
That question because like every time I ask it, I get a completely different answer
Oh,
from
really?
everybody, and it's a great it's a great hypothetical question. I feel like, and it makes you think as well. What would you change if you could change anything?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
there's a gazillion things I probably could have said. If you asked me on a different day, I probably have a different answer. Yeah, I think in general, like, hiring is always hard. I mean, I think it's
Mm.
in any industry. So yeah, if I could get those great A players so easily and bring them in, man, they change the paradigm real fast. So it's good, that would be my wish.
But Robin, thank you for coming on. I've enjoyed the podcast and insights into your company. Where can my viewers and listeners reach out to you, connect with you if they're restaurant owners or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first, thank you. This was a pleasure. And they can visit our websites. Squeakywheelbranding.com is my legacy agency. And then Squeaky Wheel Restaurant Marketing .com is our restaurant agency. So, yeah.
So everybody, if you're a restaurant owner or if you're just another in another industry that want digital marketing, that's where to hit Robin up. And if you have anybody that think could benefit from the podcast, please send it to them. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And Robin, thank you again for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.